All right, hello. We are going to be talking about why marijuana should be legalized. So, pro. I'm Olivia Bacandy.
I'm Sam Boyer, and we're going to be arguing for yeah.
So, marijuana, why should it be legalized? This has been an ongoing debate for a very long time, and in a total of 29 states, including Washington, D.C., it has been legalized for the use of marijuana. The FDA also currently dismisses the medical benefit of marijuana, but there might be something that we're missing. So, according to the Harvard Medical Blog, there are several benefits to the use of medicinal or medical marijuana. So, patients who have smoked marijuana have reported back several benefits of the CBD components, which are found in marijuana, including insomnia, anxiety, spasticity, pain, to treating potentially life-threatening conditions such as epilepsy as well. And a highly promising area of this research is it's used for PTSD in veterans who are returning from combat zones. So many veterans and their therapists report drastic improvements and clamor for more studies and for a loosening of governmental restrictions on its study. Also in the year of 2015, there was a study done by the use of a randomized clinical trials that the cannabinoids for the medical use for the following indications, such as nausea and vomiting due to chemotherapy, appetite stimulation in HIV or AIDS, chronic pain, spasticity due to multiple sclerosis, and paraplegia, depression, anxiety disorder, sleep disorder, psychosis, glaucoma, or Tourette syndrome. So there's a lot of things that they tested for. So a total of 79 trials, or about 6,042 patients were each tested for this. They were either given the cannabinoid or a placebo, or weren't even given any treatment at all. And the study showed that the average number of patients who reported a reduction in pain was at least 30%, was greater with the cannabinoids than with the placebo. So there was actually an increase in those who actually used the cannabinoids. Now, the downsides of making marijuana illegal is that it criminalizes the person, which in turn can be more harmful than the marijuana use itself. So making marijuana illegal and criminalizing the individual may affect their personal lives in various areas, such as revocation or loss of professional licenses, barriers to employment, bars from public housing, loss of educational aid, a driver's license suspension, bars on adoption, loss of the ability to participate in a jury service, and even deportation. So the individual may also experience large fines by simply being in the possession of marijuana. So for example, Arizona did not pass the legalization of marijuana, and their law states that possession of any amount of marijuana, even a tiny amount for personal use, is a felony carrying up to 2 years in prison. As a former United States Surgeon General Jocelyn Elders recently said, because of marijuana, we have become the world's biggest jailer, and we have criminalized a generation of young people for nothing and the less educated and poor.
Yeah. And going along with that, the government spends $51 billion annually to try and stop the war on drugs. And like out of the entire 51 billion, at least 6 billion is used for marijuana alone. And over the next 6 years, they'll spend over $20 billion on the drug war. All of that money will be able to go to a better use versus it going to try and stop these things of just like a small drug that like has good benefits for people medically. And it's not bad compared to like many other things people do, like murder and rape and all of these things. Those are things that people need to be focused on in the prison world, not these small little drugs. Not only does the money go towards specifically marijuana, but it also goes to housing those criminals in prison facilities when they haven't done anything wrong. There are up to 1.25 million people being arrested every year. That equates to one in every 25 seconds. That's a lot of people in prison, taking up taxpayers' dollars and room in the prison that can go to somebody who actually deserves to be there, somebody who's bad that we don't want on our streets. Those in prison for possession or use of marijuana is such a small crime with how much it costs to keep a person in prison, which is $37,500 a year. That is that money coming from out of our tax dollars for just keeping somebody in prison for marijuana. The prisons are also so overcrowded for having so many people in there for such a small crime. That amount of room and time can go to somebody else, because for every one day in prison in a sentence is actually a week long. So how for 1 week they're actually serving 1 day, or opposite way. For every day they're serving a week. So the decrowding it and taking the marijuana people who are possessing marijuana out of those prisons, that opens up more room for more the punishment for the people that deserve it, and room for people who actually deserve to be there. And not only the fact that money's going to the prisons to hold on to these drug users, but also only 10% of all drugs actually get caught. Is that worth the $51 billion of funding? A 90% fail rate? Like, what's the point of having that much money go to something that's not doing anything? All of that money that they're spending could go to something more beneficial than trying to bust some people for doing some marijuana, when it's helping them to focus on what they're doing. And they keep asking for more and more money because what they're doing isn't working, so they're trying to find new ways, but it's just not going to work, and it's just going to cost more and more and waste more of our tax dollars that can go to somewhere more beneficial, like education and other things. With the implementation of legalizing marijuana, it helped raise the employment rate and decrease the unemployment rate. With those that would smoke weed and they would try and get a job, they'd fail the blood test, because it's showing marijuana in their system. But through that failing them, they can't get that job that they want, but it's helping them with their migraines or helping them focus on said job, and it helps with their anxiety. It's legalizing it, they'll no longer fail that drug test. So they'll be able to get that job and probably do better than some of their colleagues, because they, even though they'll be under the influence of weed or whatever, they will be able to have a better attention and be able to do better at their job and have a better focus on what they're doing versus getting distracted by everything going on around them. And not only do the tests coming back negative help with the legalization of marijuana, it opens up a new job opportunities for people who are looking for a job. Those who are in the unemployed, they can finally find a job within dispensaries. And like, this opens up a whole new opportunity and job market for people to get jobs from. There's dispensaries or like warehouses. They need assembly lines for people for each step of that process, and it's going to help give plenty of people those jobs that they need. There's people, the different jobs within it are, they need to help tend to the crops. There's auditing, inventory control, including the product storage, rotation, and expiration, cash handling, including drawer management and reconciliation. And there's also the opening and closing processes that people need to make sure that everything is going smoothly. All of those things open up jobs for new people to find that they need to help support their families, or even just themselves, and get themselves off the streets if in fact they are homeless. And not only are dispensaries, but also locations where they sell the weed and distributors, that also helps people to find new jobs. It increases the employment rate by 4.5%, which may not seem like a lot, but considering the amount of people that are unemployed, that can help so many people. And the amount of people that are living there, like Houston or Los Angeles, there's so many people that are unemployed there. This will give them that job opportunity. And by legalizing marijuana, they make it to where it is harder to find things for youth. It gets stuff off the streets because they can get the same thing at a pharmacy or something, and it's better suiting for them, because when somebody goes to the streets, you don't know what you're getting. It can be a higher dosage or a lower dosage than normal, and those higher dosages can kill people. There's also, some people may buy something and there's just dangerous stuff that gets put inside of it that is not what you're actually getting. Even just the slightest difference, like if someone were to get a pill, and one pill can kill somebody, and being able to have legalized marijuana, that helps them so they know what is going inside of their drugs that are prescribed to them. It helps to know and keeps people safer off of the streets. And having it go through medicinal use, and doctors are putting it up restrictions so the youth can't get to it, and it makes it harder for them to be able to have access and get their hands on weed, because it's easier to restrict things than totally prohibit them and ban them, because they don't have control over that while they have control over these regulations. it is helping to spread awareness of the positive effects on the adults, but the negative effects that it has on teenagers. It helps adults to be able to focus and do all of these medical things, but for teenagers that don't actually need it, it slows down their brain development or stops it in total. So we need to make sure that these are going into the right hands of people, and being able to legalize it and control it and then have restrictions on it, it helps to decrease it going into teenagers' hands. And it does all of those amazing things to help those adults who need it. And those are all the good things to have about legalizing marijuana. And do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it. We're ready for your questions, but this is why we believe that marijuana should be legalized.